All right, well, it's time that I get to ask you a couple of questions. How many of you here in the audience own or operate or otherwise live on a dairy farm? Or have relatives that do? Oh, this is Wisconsin. Come on now. Raise your hands. I'm raising my hand. There you go. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm very glad you're here. So you get to be the very first people that ask me questions at the end of the presentation, okay? Now, whether you live on a dairy farm or have anything to do with a dairy farm or not, how many here drink milk or consume dairy products? You know, cheese, yogurt, ice cream. Sure, there you go. We have more honest people. That's great. We all do, right? Sure. Now, why do you eat these things? Why do you drink milk and eat cheese and yogurt and ice cream? Well, aside from the taste, I guess, you've acquired some taste somewhere along the way. There are generally two reasons that we drink milk. Two primary reasons, general reasons, categorical reasons. The first reason is because dairy products are supposed to be healthy for us. That's the first reason. Why would you do it otherwise? Milk has calcium, builds strong bones, strong bodies. That's what we think. That's what we've been told. So we're going to spend 60 seconds or so looking at some hard facts about that. Milk and dairy, in addition to other animal products, actually build weak bones and weak bodies, not strong ones. Dairy products increase your risk of bone fracture. And they drop, along with other animal products, drop your immune response. They're upregulators of inflammation. They cause inflammation. The two countries in the world with the highest per capita rate of hip fracture due to osteoporosis or weak bones are Switzerland and the US, who also have the highest amount of milk consumption, versus, say, a country like Nigeria, who eat very little animal products, almost no dairy, and they have the lowest amount of bone fractures in the world. Why don't we know this? Think that's important? Well, it's because the meat and dairy industries are economically driven, aren't they? Sure they are. They're businesses. They're not health driven. They're not educational driven. They don't want you to know this. Milk and dairy products also increase your risk, as well as other animal products, of contracting various types of cancer. Prostate, breast, ovarian. Yes, they do. And milk and dairy products increase your risk of many other diseases, as does animal products. Heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, stroke, weight gain, allergies, congestion, Parkinson's disease. And milk contains numerous contaminants, hormones, pathogens, whether it's produced organically, grass-fed, local or not. Now, if that weren't enough, just put that aside. Pretend I didn't even say that, okay? 75% of the entire world population, 75% of everybody in the world are lactose intolerant. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Meaning our bodies aren't even really designed to digest milk. You know, there are nearly 5,000, just under 5,000 different types of mammals on Earth, all of which, by definition, produce milk for their own young. We humans are the only species on our planet to drink milk after we've been weaned. I guess you could say we're a bunch of toddlers, right? With diapers on. and we're the only species of the 5,000 on our planet to drink milk from a completely different species mother. I mean, if you really look at that carefully, it's, or not so carefully, it's just a bit bizarre. So you see, milk and dairy products aren't so good for us. They're not so good for our human health, but many people just don't want to believe this. In fact, I see a number of people in the audience doing this. Tell him to stop right now. Get him out of here. I don't want him to come back. All right. So for you who don't want to hear this, it's true. But for you who don't want to hear this, this becomes a very debatable topic, doesn't it? Yeah, because you don't want to hear it. It goes in here, it goes out there. So let's talk about something that isn't debatable at all, how unhealthy dairy products are for our environment. No debate. Producing milk or any animal product on a global basis is unsustainable. That's what I'm talking about tonight. It's absolutely terrible, disastrous for our planet. There's nothing to debate. It's the most resource-inefficient food item that we humans produce today, and here's why. One dairy cow, just one dairy cow, and whether you measure this on your own dairy farms or not, it's true. On average, eats between 120 to 150 pounds of food each day, drinks 30 to 40 gallons of water each day, in addition to the other 2,000 gallons of water tied up in its food each day. Do you ever measure that? And one cow produces 5 tons of greenhouse gases in 1 year and generates 27 tons of manure in 1 year, one single cow. Now multiply that out, please. Multiply that out over the 3.5 million cows you have here just in your state of Wisconsin on your 69,000 family farms, and you have a mess. Here's what that mess looks like across our country. In Wisconsin, did you know that 40% of all your inland lakes and 25% of your well water is considered contaminated with cyanotoxins? Go look it up. and pollutants from dairy operations. Livestock in our country produce 7 million pounds of feces and urine per minute. Anybody catch that? So you still doing this? I don't want to hear this. It's true. 7 million pounds every 60 seconds. Raising animals to eat and operating dairy farms in your state of Wisconsin creates as much untreated waste as 175 million people. That's 30 times more waste than what's produced by the entire human population in your state, and it's untreated. As I said, it's a mess. When it's all said and done, it took, on average, over 1,000 gallons of fresh, clean water to produce just 1 gallon of milk, required massive, inefficient land use for all the cows and crops to feed them, contributed heavily to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, created water and air pollution to then give us a product that's unhealthy for us to consume. And remember, if you didn't have your hands over your eyes when they showed you that 75% of us humans can't even digest it. Now, along the way, there's unnecessary abuses, and I'm not here to talk about all those, but they're here. Whether you want to believe them or not, they exist. The production of veal and, of course, all the slaughtering, which is strongly defended by the industry. I understand why they do that. But we don't need to do it. And oh, please don't forget about the 400,000 pigs, almost 500,000 pigs you're raising here in Wisconsin, that are factually smarter and more sensitive than most of the dogs and cats that we all have at home. I know this. I know this from experience. And we can't leave them out of discussions, or the turkeys or chickens. So to me, it makes, looking at this for 40 years now, and in many countries in the world, it makes little sense to continue doing what our great-grandparents did in the late 1800s and early 1900s when we didn't know any better. And there are far less mouths to feed and more land and water to do so. Do any of you still use typewriters? Still use typewriters? How about a feather quill pen? You use a feather quill pen? I bet I got you there. To create your messages? All right, well, do you guys tweet with your typewriters? Huh? There you go. No, of course not. How about the Pony Express? Or the Stagecoach to send those messages or to travel? You think our internet's slow? Well, your great-grandparents did. And what about candles or kerosene lamps to read with at night or study by? Anybody out there use those? Well, why not? Why don't you use these things? I'll tell you why you don't use these things that we just talked about. It's because they're obsolete. That's why we've outgrown them. They're inefficient. They don't fit. And so it is, really, with all dairy and other animal products. The world on a global basis can no longer support the production of these things. Just like the typewriter, just like the Pony Express. We need to evolve past them, and we need to do it today. The clock is ticking. And yes, I'm very familiar with the economic implications of the meat, dairy, and fishing industries. I know quite well about them. What are we going to do about all the jobs? And there's some great solutions to transition your farms to healthier, more sustainable operations, just like the Stagecoach, just like the typewriter. For instance, did you know that you're also number one in the country for producing ginseng, and for producing cranberries, and for producing snap beans, all healthy products? I mean, you could all be running around with really nice cranberry mustaches on your above your lips, you know. You don't have to have milk there. you don't have to be number 1, 2, or 3 in our country for creating livestock waste, which you are. So that leaves only one other reason. Remember I said there were 2 reasons a few minutes ago? There's only one other reason that you'd want to drink milk or eat cheese. There is another reason, which is because someone told you to, like one of these guys. Yeah, well, I mean, if Taylor does it, you know, I got to get on the stick. It's true. Or perhaps one of these guys influenced you. I can see why. Time to root for the Packers. I do. That's great. It's wonderful. And eat some cheese. Or your mother or father or grandparents influenced you. That's the very same reason I drank milk until I knew better. And I guess you could say that technically I still do drink milk. Yeah, I do. There's no question about it. I have a problem with that. I still drink milk. Yeah, there's no question. But it's this type of milk. It's healthy. It's sustainable. It's delicious. And it's certainly compassionate. So behind the scenes, the reality of our food choices is very well covered up by clever marketing campaigns, relentless clever marketing campaigns. After 20 years, this message has now been replaced by this one. More cover-up to be looking for. And if you really want to capture the truth about food choices, you go behind the scenes, you really want to tell everybody in the world about it, say on video, great idea. You want to spread the reality? Well, you might find yourself in jail. We don't want to know the reality, do we? We don't want to know truth. Newly passed ag-gag legislation. That seems right.